The girl disappeared from her own home under very strange circumstances. The police quickly realized that they were dealing with a kidnapping. But there was one problem. All the evidence and witness testimonies indicated that it was simply impossible to abduct her. The case became even more complicated when the girl herself called the police and asked for help. Antonetta Cayetito was born on Christmas Day, December 25, 1976. Later, her parents divorced, and the girl stayed with her mother and two younger sisters in the small American town of Gallup, New Mexico. Antonetta was a very responsible child because from an early age she had to help her mother take care of the younger children and also handle various household chores. On April 5, 1986, when Antonetta was 9 years old, her mother Penny left the children with a babysitter and went to a local bar with friends. Upon returning home around midnight, she released the babysitter and talked to Antonetta until about 3 o'clock before going to sleep. Penny woke up at 7 o'clock to get the girls ready for Sunday school at the local church. To her surprise, she found that Antonetta was nowhere to be found. At first, she thought maybe the girl had gone out for a walk. However, all of her clothes and shoes were still in the house. It would have been strange if she had gone outside barefoot in just pajamas. Approaching the door, Penny noticed that it wasn't locked. This was odd because she distinctly remembered locking it after saying goodbye to the babysitter. Furthermore, there was also a protective clear barrier in front of the main door, which turned out not locked either. Penny went into their yard, but couldn't find her daughter there either. She then walked down their street, asking neighbors if they had seen Antonetta, but no one had seen her either. Soon several neighbors joined in on searching as well. Together with Penny, they covered every house and street in their area, since they lived in a remote neighborhood, so they quickly checked each place thoroughly without any results. It seemed like Antonetta vanished into thin air. By 11 o'clock, Penny decided to call police, but faced an absurd issue. The operator told Penny that she needed wait for 8 hours before filing a missing child report, the rules back then unfortunately requiring such waiting period, which made things difficult for them. Initially, when authorities finally started looking for Antonetta, they began by questioning neighbors. Given that Penny already spoke almost everyone living nearby, officers didn't obtain any valuable information. An elderly woman mentioned seeing brown van parked near Cayetito's residence between 6:37 a.m. where man got out headed towards door. However, neighbor didn't observe further events as moved away from window, explaining constant visits, relatives, friends, large family, frequent guests. Another neighbor confirmed people visiting day-night. Police interviewed all relatives who lived nearby. None knew anyone owning brown van. Officers decided speak friends similar age group. This is where lead surfaced first time. Local boys reported to the police about rumors circulating in their area. According to this information, a 62-year-old man named Wesley Daniels repeatedly approached boys aged 9 to 11. The children were afraid to tell adults about these incidents, but after Antoinette's disappearance, they decided to confess everything. It turned out that Daniels regularly took the boys on nature trips, where he forced them into prohibited actions. The police immediately arrested him, but the man denied his involvement in Antoinette's disappearance. In addition, local children said that Daniels never took girls on his outings. This led investigators to believe that he was only interested in boys. Finally, Antoinette's mother mentioned seeing Daniels on the morning of her daughter's disappearance while walking around the neighborhood with neighbors. This meant that he practically had no time to take the girl somewhere and hide her. As a result, the police announced that Daniels was charged with corrupting 4 boys, and his involvement in Antoinette's disappearance seemed unlikely. Real search efforts for the girl on site began only the next day by law enforcement officers, together with Antoinette's relatives and other volunteers who explored an extensive area around the neighborhood. But all this did not yield any leads. Around the same time, Antoinette's father Larry provided investigators with new information. His daughter's younger sister Sadie told them that someone knocked on their door twice that night. The first time they woke up from knocking and went to the door with Antoinette, but did not open it. The girls could not see who was on the other side, but didn't recognize him by voice, so they went back to sleep without opening it further when an unknown person knocked for a second time. Antoinette went there alone without Sadie, and soon returned back inside. By then they believed Antoinette was likely abducted rather than left home voluntarily. But how did it happen that someone managed silently lure her out of her house? They had no answer. Almost a year has passed since she disappeared, during which time authorities have made no progress towards solving this mystery until suddenly receiving new lead. A call came into Gallup Police Department. Lifting receiver, operator heard voice little girl saying, "My name is Antoinette Cayetito, I'm in Albuquerque." Operator tried get exact location from girl, couldn't respond anymore. Someone shouted at background, "Who allowed you use phone?" Girl screamed. Call abruptly ended, unfortunately unable trace, as lasted less than 30 seconds. Recording conversation handed over. Listen right away. Penny had doubts. Really? Daughter recognized voice, even pronunciation. Surname Albuquerque City, located just miles away from Gallup. Yet authorities couldn't pinpoint Antoinette's whereabouts. Furthermore, considered possibility prank. Unfortunately, such cases occur quite frequently. As a result, the case was put on hold for another 4 years until a new lead emerged. A waitress from Carson City, Nevada, called the police. According to her account, a man, a woman, and a teenage girl came into the cafe. While they were sitting at the table, the girl dropped utensils on the floor several times. When the waitress bent down to pick them up, the girl grabbed her hand tightly. After the visitors left, the waitress noticed a napkin on the table with a message, "Help me. Call the police." The woman did just that. When she described the appearance of the girl, officers realized it could be Antoinette Cayetito. Her description and presumed age matched completely, but there was yet another problem here too. Finding both this girl and accompanying adults proved unsuccessful. However, soon horrifying new details about this case surfaced. After all this unfolded, police decided to completely re-examine Antoinette's case. They interviewed all her relatives again, and something truly strange happened here as well. Wendy, Antoinette's youngest sister, shared new information with detectives. When her sister disappeared, she was only 5 years old. Therefore, by time of reopening of investigation, she was already 10 years old. Wendy suddenly told detectives that she saw with her own eyes what happened on that night when her sister got abducted, but feared telling everything to their mother and police. According to Wendy's account, someone indeed knocked on their door that night. Antoinette asked, "Who is it?" A male voice replied, "It's Uncle Joe." Then Antoinette opened door where 2 unknown men grabbed her. She screamed and tried resisting, but abductors dragged her into van and drove away. This narrative instantly gave new momentum to investigation. Antoinette did have an uncle named Joe who was immediately questioned. He denied any involvement in abduction, and police couldn't prove otherwise. Man had solid alibi for that night, plus Wendy said she didn't recognize either kidnapper. Considering they weren't wearing masks, the girl would have recognized family member right away. So eventually, police announced Joe wasn't involved. How then could kidnappers know girls really had an uncle named Joe? All these aspects seemed very peculiar to authorities. Then they thought, what if Wendy's story was fabricated? If we delve deeper into story, many odd moments emerge. Firstly, Penny mentioned sleeping in same room as Antoinette while other 2 girls were in separate bedroom. Yet, Wendy claimed they went out together. Perhaps girls were actually in different rooms and met near door. But how can we explain fact neither mother nor third sister heard Antoinette scream? Family lived in small house, so not hearing screams would be impossible. Same goes for neighbors. Girl being dragged from door to van should have attracted attention, yet no one heard anything. There is also inconsistency. House had 2 doors, one wooden and other transparent. If Antoinette had opened the first door, she would have seen men standing in front of her. Considering that they were strangers, the girl wouldn't have unlocked the second door and closed the first one. And even the neighbor who saw a van that morning only noticed 1 man. Well, from the girl's story, it follows that there were two of them. Therefore, Wendy's story poorly aligns with reality. Perhaps all this can be explained by the fact that the girl was only 5 years old. Furthermore, she didn't tell her story to anyone until she was 10 years old. Could it be possible that she simply forgot or mixed up some details, and her brain filled in this picture? Most people on various forums and podcasts believe that Wendy deliberately made all this up. For what purpose? There are two versions here. For attention-seeking or under someone's influence among relatives. But why would any of her relatives push a little girl to confuse the police? The only option here is this relative may be involved in the abduction. Here we come to the main question of this whole story. Could Antoinette's biological mother have been involved in this crime? This theory emerged over time within law enforcement and ultimately became the main version. Let's figure out how this theory came about at all. Knowing all of these points mentioned above, one can conclude that kidnappers had almost no opportunity to abduct Antoinette unnoticedly. The girl wouldn't open doors to strangers, and there were no signs of forced entry either. All windows and back door were also closed shut tight as well. It turns out either someone familiar did knock on their door indeed, or someone other than girls led in by kidnappers. According to mother's words, she locked both doors after Nanny left, but confirming it is simply impossible. But even if kidnappers managed to sneak into their home unnoticedly, they wouldn't have been able to abduct a child quietly anyway. She slept in one room with her mother, so Penny just could not wake up if they abducted her daughter next to herself. Antoinette would definitely scream out loud, then both other girls could hear it too. There remain just two options. Either willingly went away with kidnappers, or at moment of abduction wasn't conscious and didn't wake up even when carried into van. Mother might have drugged her with sleeping pills or something stronger than opened or letting them inside. But why would she do all these things? What could make woman give away own daughter to strangers? Here police considered most banal version, money. According some family acquaintances' words, parents took illegal substances for long time period. Maybe mom owed dealers large sum, and as payment decided take away child from them, or maybe sold off own daughter for hefty sum instead. Just few months after disappearance, information surfaced stating Antoinette's mom bought expensive sports car herself. Moreover, many years later, police revealed another alarming fact during initial stages investigation. Penny underwent polygraph test, which turned out negative. Unfortunately, detectives couldn't take any actions solely based on lie detector results alone. In 1999, 13 years after Antoinette's disappearance, her mother fell seriously ill and was on the brink of death. Detectives hoped that at least by the end of her life she would tell the truth, but they did not manage to reach her in time. Penny passed away in the hospital, and along with her, almost all chances of solving this mystery disappeared. The police still hope that Wendy will eventually reveal everything. Her story about two men breaking into the house does not match reality, so at the very least she can say that this story was imposed on her by her mother. Over 35 years have passed, but the case remains open and is regularly reviewed. However, investigators have no doubts that her own mother is directly related to the girl's disappearance. The only question is whether detectives will be able to reach other participants in this crime and uncover all details.